In the heart of a distant galaxy, nestled within the swirling mists of an uncharted nebula, lay the planet Zithra, a realm cloaked in mystery and shimmering with otherworldly beauty. It was here that Captain Ryland Drake found himself stranded after his ship, the Iron Star, succumbed to a rogue asteroid storm during one of his many interstellar missions. A seasoned warrior known for his courage and wit, Ryland had seen countless worlds and faced dangers beyond imagination. But nothing could have prepared him for what awaited him on this strange new world. Zithra was unlike any place he'd ever encountered. Its skies blazed with hues of violet and gold, while its forests glowed faintly under the twin suns' light. The air carried a sweet yet metallic tang, and every sound seemed amplified by some unseen force. As Ryland trudged through the alien terrain, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Every rustle of leaves or distant hum made him grip his plasma blade tighter, ready for whatever lurked in the shadows. It wasn't long before he stumbled upon signs of civilization, towering spires carved from crystalline rock jutting out from the horizon like frozen lightning bolts. Drawn by curiosity and desperation, Ryland ventured toward them, hoping to find shelter or perhaps allies who might help repair his damaged vessel. What he didn't expect, however, was to be ambushed just as he reached the outskirts of the city. A group of armored beings descended upon him, their forms sleek and insectoid, weapons humming ominously at their sides. They spoke in melodic tones, though their language was incomprehensible. Before Ryland could react, they disarmed him and bound his hands with glowing restraints. Despite his initial panic, Ryland quickly realized these creatures weren't hostile, at least not entirely. Their leader stepped forward, her voice softer than the others, carrying an almost musical quality. She addressed him in broken but understandable galactic common. "You, trespasser. Come." And so began Ryland's journey into the enigmatic society of Zithra, where secrets ran deeper than the towering spires themselves, and where fate would soon introduce him to someone who would change his life forever. Ryland was led through labyrinthine corridors of translucent stone, each step echoing beneath vaulted ceilings adorned with intricate carvings that shimmered faintly in the dim light. The guards flanking him moved with mechanical precision, their exoskeletal armor clicking softly against the polished floor. Despite his predicament, Ryland couldn't help but marvel at the craftsmanship around him. Everything about this place felt alive, pulsating with energy that seemed to hum in rhythm with his own heartbeat. Finally, they arrived at a grand chamber bathed in iridescent light streaming through massive stained-glass windows. At its center stood a throne unlike anything Ryland had ever seen. It appeared to be forged from living crystal, shifting colors slowly as if breathing. And seated upon it was something extraordinary. Her presence commanded attention without effort. Her figure was draped in flowing robes that shimmered like liquid mercury, accentuating her lithe frame. Her skin bore a pearlescent sheen, catching the light in ways that hinted at scales rather than flesh. Yet it was her face, or lack thereof, that captivated Ryland most. A veil of gossamer threads hung over her features, obscuring them completely. The fabric seemed impossibly delicate, yet it deflected even the keenest gaze, leaving only the faintest outline of her jawline visible. "Human," she said, her voice resonating with authority laced with curiosity. Unlike the guttural tones of her guards, hers was smooth and melodic, like a symphony played on strings of glass. "You have trespassed into our domain uninvited." Ryland swallowed hard, trying to maintain his composure despite the surreal nature of the situation. "I didn't mean to intrude," he replied carefully. "My ship was damaged, and I sought refuge. I meant no harm." She tilted her head slightly, studying him through the veil. Though her expression remained hidden, there was an undeniable intelligence behind her movements. After a moment, she rose gracefully from her throne, her robes cascading around her like molten silver. "Your kind has been absent from our records for centuries," she mused aloud. "What brings you here now?" "I'm a traitor," Ryland lied smoothly, knowing full well how dangerous it might be to admit he was merely lost. "Exploring new routes. Perhaps we could strike a deal? Spare parts for safe passage off-world." For a fleeting second, the corners of her lips curved upward, though whether in amusement or disdain, Ryland couldn't tell. "You speak boldly for someone in chains," she remarked. Then, after a pause, she added, "Very well. You shall remain here until my council decides your fate. Until then, you are a guest." As the guards ushered him away, Rylan caught one last glimpse of her standing regally amidst the radiant glow of the chamber. There was something about her, something magnetic, that lingered in his mind long after he'd been escorted to a cell-like room deep within the palace. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but he knew instinctively that this encounter was far from over. Days passed in monotony, though Rylan used the time wisely. He observed everything: the patterns of the guards' patrols, the subtle hum of energy coursing through the walls, the way servants scurried about with quiet efficiency. Most importantly, he noticed how often whispers of the veiled woman reached his ears. She was called Princess Veilra, ruler of Zithra, and her name was spoken with reverence bordering on awe. Yet there was also fear woven into those murmurs, as though she were both savior and specter rolled into one. On the fourth day, she came to him personally. The door to his quarters slid open silently, revealing her silhouette framed by the soft luminescence of the hallway. Without waiting for permission, she entered, dismissing the guards stationed outside with a wave of her hand. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Instead, they simply regarded each other across the small space. "You intrigue me, human," Veilra finally said, her voice softer now, almost intimate. "Few outsiders survive their first audience with me. Fewer still earn a second." "I'll take that as a compliment," Rylan quipped, leaning casually against the wall despite the tension coiling in his chest. "Though I'd prefer not to spend the rest of my days locked up here." Veilra tilted her head again, the gesture oddly bird-like yet graceful. "There may be another option," she said cryptically. "One that benefits us both." "Oh." Rylan raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly does a princess want with a lowly wanderer like me?" Her response sent a shiver down his spine. "Marriage." The word hung between them, heavy and absurd. Rylan blinked, certain he'd misheard. "Excuse me. Do not mistake this for sentimentality," Veilra continued, unperturbed. "Our laws dictate that only those bonded by marriage may see my true face. Should you accept, you will become part of Zithra's royal line, and gain freedom to leave when you wish." "And if I refuse?" Rylan asked cautiously. "Then you remain here indefinitely," she replied matter-of-factly. "Your choice." Rylan stared at her, weighing the implications. Marriage to an alien princess? It sounded like the plot of some ridiculous Hollywood drama. Yet, as impractical as it seemed, it was also undeniably intriguing. Not to mention the fact that refusing outright might seal his doom. "What's the catch?" he asked bluntly. Veilra chuckled, a sound like wind chimes dancing in a breeze. "No catch, human. Only truth." With that, she turned and left, leaving Rylan alone with his thoughts, and a decision that could alter the course of his life forever. After hours of deliberation, Rylan reluctantly agreed to the proposal. Whether driven by desperation, curiosity, or a mix of both, he couldn't say. All he knew was that staying imprisoned indefinitely offered no future worth considering. And so, under the watchful eyes of Zithra's court, preparations for the wedding commenced with startling speed. The ceremony itself was a spectacle unlike anything Rylan had ever witnessed. Held in a vast amphitheater carved directly into the side of a mountain, it was attended by hundreds of Zithrans, their bioluminescent markings casting an ethereal glow over the proceedings. Rylan stood awkwardly beside Veilra, clad in ceremonial robes that shimmered like starlight. Around them, chants echoed in a language older than time, weaving a tapestry of sound that seemed to resonate with the very core of the planet. When the ritual concluded, applause erupted, not cheers, but harmonized tones that vibrated through the air. Veilra turned to him, her veiled face unreadable. "It is done," she whispered. "You are mine now, human. And I am yours." That night, as they retired to her chambers, Rylan's nerves reached a fever pitch. The anticipation gnawed at him, mingling with excitement and trepidation. When the doors sealed shut behind them, Veilra approached him slowly, her movements deliberate. For a moment, she simply stood there, her head tilted as though studying him anew. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. "As I'll ever be," Rylan replied, his voice steadier than he felt. With a fluid motion, she reached up and untied the delicate veil covering her face. As it fell away, Rylan's breath hitched, not because of what he saw, but because of what he didn't. Where her features should have been, there was emptiness. No nose, no mouth, no eyes, just smooth opalescent skin stretching seamlessly across where a face ought to exist. Ryland staggered back, shock rooting him to the spot. His mind raced, struggling to process the impossibility before him. What are you?" he stammered. Veilra's form shimmered faintly, as though amused. "This is why my people wear veils," she explained calmly. "To shield truths too difficult for outsiders to bear. My kind evolved beyond physical faces millennia ago, trading them for heightened perception. We see not with eyes, but with thought." "But—" Ryland trailed off, his thoughts spiraling. He had expected beauty, strangeness, even danger, but never this. Never a void where humanity resided. Before he could gather his wits, the ground beneath them trembled violently. An alarm blared throughout the palace, sharp and urgent. Veilra stiffened, her once calm demeanor replaced by steely resolve. "Stay close," she ordered sharply. "We are under attack." Outside, chaos reigned. Ships streaked across the sky, unleashing barrages of energy fire onto the city below. Ryland followed Veilra as she sprinted toward the source of the commotion, her movements unervingly swift. Whatever questions lingered in his mind would have to wait. For now, survival took precedence. As they emerged onto a balcony overlooking the battlefield, Ryland spotted the invaders. Grotesque, hulking creatures with jagged limbs and glowing red cores embedded in their chests. They moved with ruthless efficiency, tearing through Zithran defenses like paper. Beside him, Veilra clenched her fists, her body beginning to emit a faint, pulsating glow. "They've come for me," she said grimly. "And they will stop at nothing to take what is mine." Ryland glanced at her, then back at the carnage unfolding below. Whatever mysteries Veilra held, one thing was clear. Their fates were intertwined now, bound together by vows and circumstance alike. With a deep breath, he drew his plasma blade, igniting its fiery blue edge. "Then let's give them hell," he muttered. Side by side, they charged into the fray, two unlikely warriors united against an enemy determined to tear their fragile alliance apart. The battle raged with an intensity that left Ryland's senses reeling. The alien invaders, their bodies bristling with jagged protrusions and glowing cores pulsing like malevolent hearts, moved with terrifying speed and precision. They were unlike anything he had ever faced, part machine, part organic nightmare. Each strike they delivered carried enough force to shatter stone, and their guttural roars echoed through the chaos like a death knell. Veilra, however, was no ordinary princess. As soon as she stepped onto the battlefield, her presence transformed into something otherworldly. Her opalescent skin shimmered brighter, radiating waves of energy that seemed to ripple outward in concentric circles. Without warning, she raised both hands, and the air around them crackled with electricity. A bolt of pure light erupted from her fingertips, striking one of the hulking creatures square in its chest. Its core shattered in a burst of sparks, sending it crashing to the ground. Ryland couldn't help but gawk for a split second before snapping back to focus. "Okay," he muttered under his breath. "Definitely not human." He lunged forward, his plasma blade slicing through another invader's arm. The creature howled in rage, swinging wildly at him with its remaining limb. Ryland ducked just in time, rolling beneath its legs and slashing upward. His blade connected with its core, causing it to explode in a shower of molten fragments. He barely had time to catch his breath before two more descended upon him, their glowing eyes locked onto him like predators closing in on prey. "Need a hand," Veilra called out, her voice calm despite the carnage surrounding them. She extended her arm, and a wave of kinetic energy surged forth, sending the creatures tumbling backward. Their heavy forms smashed into nearby pillars, crumbling parts of the palace structure in the process. "Thanks," Ryland shouted back, already moving toward another group of enemies. He fought with a ferocity born of desperation, each swing of his blade fueled by adrenaline and sheer willpower. Yet even as he held his own, he couldn't shake the feeling that this invasion wasn't random. These creatures wanted something, and judging by the way they kept targeting Veilra, it was clear she was the prize. As the fighting intensified, Ryland noticed something peculiar about the attackers. Their movements, though brutal, were eerily coordinated, as if they were being controlled by some unseen force. Every now and then, one of them would pause mid-attack, tilting its head slightly as though receiving instructions. It didn't take long for Rylan to piece together the truth. These weren't independent beings. They were drones, extensions of a single entity commanding them from afar. "We need to find their leader," he yelled over the din, deflecting a blow from yet another monstrous adversary. Veilra nodded sharply, her expression grim. "The Overmind," she said, her tone laced with venom. "A parasitic intelligence that consumes worlds. If it has come for me, then Zithra is already doomed." "Doomed?" "That's cheery," Rylan quipped, narrowly avoiding a swipe from a razor-sharp claw. "So what's the plan? Run away?" "No," Veilra replied firmly. "We destroy it." Her words sent a chill down Rylan's spine. Destroying an entity capable of unleashing such devastation sounded impossible, but then again, so did marrying an alien princess without a face. At this point, nothing surprised him anymore. With renewed determination, the pair fought their way deeper into the heart of the city, carving a path through waves of relentless foes. Along the way, they encountered pockets of resistance from Zithran soldiers, who rallied behind Veilra with unwavering loyalty. Despite their numbers, however, the defenders were vastly outmatched. Many fell in defense of their home, their crystalline armor shattering under the relentless assault. Rylan found himself grappling with guilt as he watched allies fall around him. He hadn't asked for any of this. He'd only been passing through when fate dragged him into this mess. But as he glanced at Veilra, her form glowing brighter with every passing moment, he realized that running wasn't an option. Not anymore. Whatever bond they shared, forged through bizarre circumstances or not, had become real. And if there was even a sliver of hope to save her people, he owed it to them, and to her, to try. Finally, after what felt like hours of relentless combat, they reached the source of the attack, a massive, pulsating orb hovering above the central spire of the palace. Its surface writhed with tendrils of dark energy, each twitching strand exuding malice. Below it floated dozens of smaller drones, their red cores flickering ominously. "The Overmind," Veilra whispered, her voice trembling, not with fear, but with barely contained fury. "It feeds on life, consuming everything until nothing remains." "And you think we can stop it?" Rylan asked skeptically, eyeing the monstrous construct warily. "We must," Veilra replied simply. Then, without hesitation, she launched herself skyward, her body trailing streaks of radiant light. Rylan stared in awe as she soared toward the Overmind, her movements graceful yet purposeful. For a moment, he wondered how someone, or something, without a face could convey such raw emotion. But there was no denying the resolve in her actions. Realizing he couldn't let her face this alone, Rylan scanned the area for anything that might give him an edge. Spotting a damaged drone nearby, he sprinted toward it, prying loose one of its detached limbs. With some quick modifications using tools scavenged from fallen enemies, he fashioned a makeshift weapon, a crude but effective energy launcher. It wouldn't last long, but it might buy them the time they needed. As Veilra approached the Overmind, tendrils of darkness lashed out at her, attempting to ensnare her glowing form. She evaded them with fluid grace, her hands weaving intricate patterns in the air. Each gesture released bursts of energy that severed the tendrils, forcing the Overmind to retreat momentarily. But it was clear that she couldn't keep this up indefinitely. The strain was evident in the way her light began to flicker. Rylan took aim with his improvised launcher, firing a concentrated beam of energy directly at the Overmind's core. The impact caused a ripple across its surface, destabilizing it briefly. Encouraged, he fired again and again, each shot weakening its defenses further. Meanwhile, Veilra channeled all her power into a final, devastating assault. Her entire body lit up like a supernova, releasing a torrent of blinding light that engulfed the Overmind completely. For a brief moment, everything went silent. Then, with a deafening roar, the Overmind imploded, collapsing inward until nothing remained but a faint wisp of smoke. The remaining drones froze, their cores dimming as they lost their connection to their master. One by one, they collapsed lifelessly to the ground. Exhausted but victorious, Veilra descended slowly, her glow fading as she landed beside Rylan. For once, her usually composed demeanor faltered, revealing a vulnerability he hadn't seen before. "It's done," she murmured softly. "But at great cost." Looking around at the destruction wrought upon her city, Rylan understood what she meant. Buildings lay in ruins, streets were littered with debris, and countless lives had been lost. Yet amidst the devastation, survivors began to emerge, their faces etched with gratitude as they approached their queen. "You saved us," one elderly Zithran said, bowing deeply before Veilra. Others followed suit, murmuring words of thanks and praise. But Veilra shook her head, her gaze distant. "No," she corrected gently. "We saved each other." Rylan stood silently beside her, unsure of what to say. In the span of days, his entire world had been turned upside down. From crash landing on an alien planet to marrying a princess without a face, battling an intergalactic threat, and now standing amidst the ruins of a civilization he barely understood, it was almost too much to process. And yet, as he looked at Veilra, he realized something unexpected. He didn't want to leave. Not yet. There was still so much he didn't know about her, about Zithra, about himself. Perhaps, in some strange way, this was where he was meant to be. Before either of them could speak further, a low rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. Somewhere in the distance, a new threat loomed, a shadowy figure emerging from the wreckage, its intentions unknown. Whatever peace they had earned was fleeting, fragile. The journey was far from over. The shadowy figure emerged from the haze of smoke and dust, its silhouette distorted by the flickering remnants of energy still crackling in the air. It was humanoid but unervingly tall, its body wrapped in tattered robes that seemed to ripple as though alive. Its face, if it could be called that, was obscured by a featureless black mask, smooth and reflective like polished obsidian. The creature moved with deliberate slowness, each step resonating with an eerie weight, as if the ground itself recoiled beneath its presence. Veilra tensed immediately, her glow returning faintly despite her exhaustion. "This is not over," she whispered, her voice tinged with dread. Rylan instinctively stepped closer to her, his makeshift launcher raised defensively. "Who or what is that?" he asked through gritted teeth. "The Harbinger," Veilra replied, her tone hollow. "A harbinger of endings. Wherever it appears, ruin follows." The ominous figure stopped several paces away, tilting its head slightly as though studying them. Then, without warning, it spoke, not with words, but directly into their minds. The voice was cold, ancient, and devoid of emotion. "You have disrupted the cycle. The Overmind was meant to cleanse this world, to prepare it for rebirth. Now you must answer for your defiance." Rylan's grip tightened on his weapon. "Prepare it for what?" "Rebirth sounds nice unless it involves wiping out everyone first." Veilra placed a hand on his arm, silently urging caution. She addressed the Harbinger aloud, her voice steady despite the tension radiating off her. "If cleansing means destruction, then we reject it. Zithra will survive, not because of fate, but because of choice." The Harbinger tilted its head again, as if considering her words. Then, with a gesture so subtle it was almost imperceptible, the ground beneath them began to split apart. Jagged cracks spread outward, glowing faintly with molten energy. From these fissures rose tendrils of darkness, writhing like serpents and converging toward the pair. "We don't have time for speeches," Rylan shouted, firing a blast from his launcher at the nearest tendril. The shot disintegrated it momentarily, but more sprouted in its place, relentless and unyielding. Veilra closed her eyes briefly, focusing inward. When she opened them again, they glowed faintly, an impossible feat given her lack of physical features. "I can hold them back," she said firmly, "but only for so long. You need to find its core." "Core?" Rylan repeated incredulously. "Like the Overmind?" "Yes," Veilra confirmed. "Every Harbinger has one, a nexus point where its power originates. Destroy it, and you destroy the threat." "And how exactly am I supposed to do that while dodging spaghetti monsters made of shadow?" Rylan snapped, diving to avoid another tendril. "You'll figure it out." Veilra shot back, her composure slipping just enough to reveal a hint of humor even in the dire situation. With a surge of energy, she unleashed a barrier around herself, pushing back the encroaching darkness and buying Rylan precious seconds. Taking a deep breath, Rylan sprinted forward, weaving between the tendrils as they lashed out at him. His heart pounded in his chest, every step bringing him closer to the towering figure of the Harbinger. Up close, the creature was even more terrifying. Its very presence seemed to warp reality, distorting light and sound around it. But Rylan forced himself to focus. If there was a core, it had to be somewhere central, protected yet vulnerable. He spotted it. A faint pulsation within the Harbinger's chest, barely visible beneath the shifting layers of its robe. That had to be it. Summoning every ounce of courage, Rylan leaped onto the creature's form, using its writhing appendages as footholds. The Harbinger roared mentally, the sound piercing through his skull like shards of glass. Pain exploded across his senses, but he gritted his teeth and pressed on. Reaching the pulsating core, Rylan aimed his launcher and fired repeatedly, each shot causing the Harbinger to convulse violently. Finally, with a deafening shriek that reverberated through the entire city, the creature collapsed, its form dissolving into nothingness. The tendrils vanished instantly, leaving behind an eerie silence. Breathing heavily, Rylan stumbled back to Veilra, who lowered her barrier as the danger passed. Her glow dimmed once more, her strength clearly spent. Around them, the surviving Zithrans began to gather, their expressions a mix of relief and awe. "You did it," Veilra said softly, her voice carrying both admiration and something deeper, something akin to gratitude. "No," Rylan corrected, echoing her earlier sentiment. "We did it." For a moment, they simply stood there, surrounded by the ruins of a battle that had tested them in ways neither could have anticipated. Then, slowly, Veilra reached up and touched his cheek, her touch surprisingly warm despite her alien nature. "Thank you," she murmured. "For everything." Rylan hesitated, unsure of what to say. This woman, or being, had challenged everything he thought he knew about life, love, and loyalty. He had started this journey as a lost wanderer, but now he felt tethered to something greater than himself. In the days that followed, Rylan worked alongside Veilra and her people to rebuild Zithra. Though the scars of the invasion remained, hope blossomed anew among the survivors. Together, they forged alliances, shared stories, and celebrated victories both big and small. As for Rylan and Veilra, their bond deepened with each passing day. Though she still wore her veil in public, she often let it fall in private moments, allowing Rylan to see the truth of her existence, not as a faceless enigma, but as a being of profound beauty and complexity. In return, she came to understand the depths of his humanity, his flaws, his fears, and his boundless capacity for resilience. When the time came for Rylan to decide whether to stay or leave, there was no hesitation in his heart. Zithra had become his home, and Veilra, well, she had become far more than he ever imagined possible. And so, under the twin suns of a distant galaxy, two souls from different worlds found unity, not in spite of their differences, but because of them. Their story was written in starlight, etched into the fabric of the cosmos itself, a testament to the enduring power of connection, courage, and love.